Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Daily Manchester United podcast. My name is Niall Hannigan, and I'm joined by Kieran McGinley. Kieran, how are you getting on?
I think that answers it for you. Just an I went in with optimism before the match and wasn't rewarded, let's just say.
No. And there's two ways to answer that question. There's how are you personally, and then how are you as a United fan? And I hope they're drastically different.
One of them's got to be I'm okay, isn't it? Surely. But it's not the football, that's for sure.
Good. But anyway, yes, Tactics Tuesday. We had a bit of a discussion yesterday with Cormac and Tom around kind of raw reaction to the result against Fulham, and today we'll kind of do a bit of I suppose analysis on the game ourselves, get your own opinion, Kieran, as well, and have to touch on a few tactics as well. Normally you have a few stats up your sleeve from your sources, like, so let's see how we get on. But I mean, we were just talking off air there. You were saying that you saw a bit of a reaction there from the team in terms of actually facing this game with a bit more energy than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I sort of felt like the pundits at the BBC were out to get these two teams. I'll admit it's not going to go down in recent history as an FA Cup classic. Not all of them can be. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, the front three started pressing in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes really well. And I felt like it wasn't, it went well for the first 20 minutes. And then after that, once the United players started to realise that, actually, we can't really press Fulham because they're beating the press every time, they started to stop doing that and sort of let Fulham have their own space, which slowed the play down, which benefited Fulham because we were, it was back and forth at a time. But to allow Fulham to get back into the game and allow them to build momentum is very un-Manchester United-like. If you're pressing, you've got to continually do it. You have to keep getting at Fulham. But I can't fault Fulham. They were fantastic. Calvin Bassey, absolutely unbeatable at the back. Joachim Andersen had his moments as well. He did get a booking, but I thought Bassey and Andersen were just phenomenal at the back for Fulham. It just didn't look like we were going to get through. And it summed it all up when right on the stroke of half time, whilst the players are umming and ahhing and moaning about how it was or wasn't a corner, they just lose their concentration again. Okay, the decision might not have gone your way, but get on with it. It's not have a moan at the ref at half time. You're not going to change his mind now, and it leads to a bit of a scramble. Comes off one Fulham player pretty much perfectly into the path of Calvin Bassey, who can just nod it home. And when you're conceding a goal like that, you can put it down to concentration. But I think that first touch from the Fulham player, I forget who it was now, which is really bad of me. But when you're conceding to a goal that's just a flick on and all of a sudden it's in the back of the net, you just think, well, I mean, even if we were a well-drilled side, would we have kept that out? I don't know. But it was a bit deflating to go in at half-time when we were on top for a good 20 minutes and it just seemed like we were really up for it. And then the last 20 minutes of the match, we just sort of let Fulham play their own game at Old Trafford, which is all too familiar this season. The away team comes to Old Trafford and is allowed to play their own style of football.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, Bassey there and Anderson and even Robinson as well. Like they're great defenders, but they're equally as good on the ball. Like they're great footballers. And you mentioned being able to kind of beat the press, and that was seen. I think they had like 59, 60% possession in the match. And like I made a point yesterday in the podcast around us playing with two in midfield, and I really think that's going to be an issue. Every team plays with three now these days, and when you have really good technical players in there, Smith Rowe and Pereira, our former United player, and Sanderberg as well, like, they were kind of knocking it around in triangles, and that's very demotivating when you're trying to press, especially when you have Bruno went in there eventually, but you had Ugarte and Casemiro who were just kind of chasing shadows for a while there, and that kind of kills the whole momentum, and it's very difficult to get that back like we saw. So it's definitely going to be an area that we need to work on in terms of how we can't leave ourselves exposed with this new system of 3 or 5 at the back, which is more what it's normally looking like.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty shambolic because I knew sort of was mentioned on the BBC Sport broadcast, or I should say BBC One, where he was looking through all of the FA Cup matches, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm just having to look at this now, I'm pretty sure that the last time Fulham knocked us out of the FA Cup was one of the first ever meetings between the two sides in the FA Cup, where Fulham in 1905 won, in 1908 won, and looking back through it, I don't think they've ever beaten us in the FA Cup until this time around. Really? I just, as soon as I heard that stat mentioned, I thought, wow, that's it then, isn't it? Fulham have won this. Yeah. United are making history. It's just for every other team.
Yeah. We seem to be good at that, though.
We are really good at that.
There's records being broken every week, so you can't really complain too much. But I suppose when it is against you, it's a bitter pill to swallow.
It is, and for it to keep happening, for all of these records against us to keep happening, is just all right. It's get a bit repetitive now, lads. Let's change up the record. But
joke's over. Yeah. Only the first time.
Wait, I'm pinching myself now. Can we wake up?
Yeah. Well, I suppose Tactics Tuesday. Look, there's so much to speak about. Obviously, we've seen this system now for 3-4 months. Cormac was making a point yesterday that he's not really seeing any progression. It looked like kind of Amram's taken over just over the last couple of weeks. There's not that much changing. The players still look a bit lost. We did comment on that yesterday. But these wing back positions, we badly need some strength in those areas. I think it's just such a key position to be filled with specialists when it comes to this formation. It plays into the point around being overloaded in midfield. If you have the correct press with those guys that they know exactly where they're meant to be at all times, it kind of distracts from that and you can get benefits from different areas. But it just seems like an area we really, really need to invest in when it comes to the summer.
And I think in Patrick Dorgu, we will have that. I genuinely think, because you look at that game and De Ligt was absolutely pinging those long passes. I think 3 in the first 20 or so minutes towards Dalot. And 2 out of 3, Dalot was able to control and able to push forward. And I feel like if you put Patrick Dorgu in that position, he's going to be very dangerous. I really think that is something that the team are working on and Amram has been working on, where it's not long balls forward, it's long balls sideways. Because you've got these wingers here and you've got 2, let's say, attacking midfielders. As Eriksen started alongside Xerxes. And you would think their instruction is to stay narrow, allow the overlap to happen with the likes of Dorgu and I think it was Mazraoui on the other side.
It was, yeah.
So allow them to make the overlap. Now, we've already mentioned how Mazraoui, not our strongest player going forward, but that's fine. We can play him as a centre-back. He's proven himself there. But Patrick Dorgu on that left-hand side, in the glimpses that we've seen him, looks like a very quick, very agile, very skillful player. I think he's exactly what we need to allow that left wing to be opened up, because he's been putting in crosses as well in the games that we've seen. And yes, okay, with that miscommunication between him and Onana at the back in our last Premier League game, he's only 20. And I think genuinely he is going to grow into that role. I think he's going to lock down that left-hand side. I really hope he does, because De Ligt's passing, that long-range passing he had was phenomenal. It was a joy to watch. It was actually good to watch something like that happen for once, because it felt like it was predetermined. It wasn't just a long ball forward. It was literally De Ligt picking out the left wing-back.
Yeah, you made a good point. We've seen it so often, and I think Højlund gets, obviously he hasn't been great, but he gets a lot of criticism where there's been just hopeful balls pinged into him from 40 yards with no angle on it, and it's what are you meant to do? It's impossible when you're up there by yourself. But once you put a bit of an angle on the pass, like you mentioned from De Ligt, diagonal balls over the top to your wing backs who are extremely high and wide, that's exactly what you need. I think we just need that now on the right-hand side, and whether that is going to be Ahmad long-term, whether Ahmad's going to play as one of the number 10s, we have that flexibility there, but we also need a lot of cover in those positions, because we did kind of get one side predominant when Garnacho was coming on, especially in the left-hand side. Everything had to go down that side because we were a bit limited on the right. So it's just an area that is very important for this formation, and definitely something that we need to improve on if we're going to progress. But anyway, let's take a bit of a break and hear from our friends at Bioniq.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique. And Global Sports...
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
I think Bioniq was biting off more than I could chew there. But anyway, we're back. Let's not put it on infinity mode again. But
Always helpful, you don't, but hey ho.
Yeah, we're learning the tech over here. It's fine. But I wanted to chat to you about Xerxes. He's had a very interesting start to his career at United. You know, he's been involved in highs and lows when it comes to penalty shootouts. He's been, you know, got the curly finger after 25, 30 minutes in other matches. You know, he has really good moments, but, you know, then he might not make three people in a row and then give the ball away. And you can tell he's very technical, but we don't really know what he is, and we don't really know what his best position is. How would you kind of, I suppose, sum up how he got on yesterday, but just in general with his start at United?
Well, he told us the moment he came to Manchester United what he was. He's a 9.5, and we were all joking and laughing about it. But actually, playing him deeper is using his role a little bit better. And you're right; those moments for Xerxes have been few and far between. And as much as I, would love to give him all the credit for keeping his head up, because it's been tough out there. It sums it up when he steps up to take the deciding penalty, the fifth penalty. And it takes a lot of nerve to do that. I have a fantastic record of pretty much missing every penalty I've ever taken, and that was in front of nobody. So, for Xerxes to do it in front of 70-odd thousand, a lot of pressure on him. And it's just one of those, I'll never slate anyone who steps up to take the penalty and it's on target. I'll never slate anyone for that, because what more can you do? Sometimes you get some great penalties. I mean, we saw some great penalties in that shootout, which we'll get onto later. But yeah, I just think I can't fault the man for trying. But sometimes there are games where, as you say, he has a good game, but they're 1 in every 3, 1 in every 4. And when he's only got 3 Premier League goals this season, yes, we're playing him slightly deeper, but Bruno Fernandes has got 6. Ahmad has got 6 in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. So, you want more from your attacking players, and it's somewhere and something we are lacking is goals. And if they're not coming from Højlund and they're not coming from Xerxes, they're having to come from deeper. And you just get into this mess where players feel the need, like Fernandes, to push further on forward, and Garnacho to try and snatch at chances as well in the second half. And when he came on, he was great at getting into positions. Him and Chido Obi-Martin coming on completely changed the way our attack looked. But I want to keep the faith with the players that are playing right now. I really do, because I see that potential in Xerxes, but he's going to have to start doing more than just being a strong character. He's got to deliver more on the pitch.
Yeah, I'm very torn, and this isn't just about Xerxes, but about the majority of them. Like, is it good enough to try hard? And I think even sometimes that can be questionable as well with some of the performances, or kind of the motivation or the reactions to what's actually happening on the pitch. I think it's not just about this, but in general, like, our standards, I think, as United fans, has probably just dwindled in terms of what we're actually expecting. Like, if someone is brave and tries stuff, it's like, yeah, no, he's our leading force now, because that's just what it's come to. And it's difficult to digest, because you're coming up to the weekend, or you're coming up to a couple of days before the game, or even the day of the game, and the team comes out and you're like, Yeah, no, it's still the same guys that are going to be coming out at the weekend. So you're just kind of, your heart sinks again and you get your optimism up again. But it's just, yeah, it's tough. Like, because I think at this level, you just have to be better. Like, you just have to have more quality. If you're playing for United, if you're on those wages, it's the same in any job. You know, if you're being paid that, there's a lot more expectations of you. And if you've been, you know, given the opportunity that, yeah, you can perform at that level, then it's got to be better. And, you know, we spoke about Garnacho yesterday about getting into great positions, but we've just seen so often that the end ball is just not there. And you spoke about our players on 5 and 6 goals in the league. Like, it shows, because at the end of the day, you're in the bottom quarter of the table. You need to score enough goals to even compete. Like, if you're not keeping clean sheets, you're screwed. To say the Michael Owen quote that if they score a goal, if they score more than the opposition, they'll probably win. Like, so, you know, it's just tough. Like, because, you know, they probably should be getting more, and we really should be bringing in players, I think, that are of a higher quality in general, because I don't think this crop is going to get us to where we need to be.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we're conceding goals at an expected rate maybe slightly higher than those challenging for Europe. I think it's about 5 or 6 goals more, which I don't think is the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But where we struggle is we've scored 20 odd fewer than those battling for Europe at some of them. So that's where it is, and we've known this for, you know, since sort of October, November. You know, we were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed when Xerxes got the winner against Fulham on the opening day of the Premier League, and that was so far now, that's a third of his goals in the Premier League. And it's hard to sort of, it's not hard to pinpoint where the problems are. We haven't got enough quality attackers. We haven't got any cutthroat attackers. And this is where I wanted to, you know, spur on to Chido Obi-Martin. Finally getting some minutes there. And it just seems like he's improving quite a lot. He has that absolute tenacity about him to get into those spaces. And where you kind of feel that Højlund was getting into good positions. I think there was a good chance in the game where he has to really take it first time and try and hook it around.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't quite do it because I think it was Bassi on him. I think that was his best chance of the game. And otherwise, he was found on the wings quite a lot. You know, he was then having to be the one to put the ball in the box when you're sort of thinking, well, we need you in the box. So when Chido came on, he changed the game along with Garnacho. He was getting those shots away. He was testing Leno. And that was something that only Fernandes had done up to that point after 77 minutes. And I thought he was really unlucky with that 90th minute. It's in the range of Leno, but the headline, the back pages were there. The Manchester United youth were to save us again. But to be honest with you, I wanted to see more of him. You broke my heart when you told me off air that he's actually not registered for the Europa League, so he can't start against Real Sociedad. But look, if we've played FIFA and if we've played Football Manager before, we're going to Arsenal. Let's play Chido Obi-Martin. We know what the story's going to be. A hat-trick. Gotta be.
Yeah, and heaven come on and get a fourth.
Yeah, exactly. From a corner. It's written in the stars. Let it happen.
Absolutely. Okay, let's take another quick break and we'll be back with a bit more Obi discussion, I think.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
I mentioned yesterday that Obi, he's kind of funny to watch. Like, he's very unorthodox in the way he plays, and comparing him to Højlund, who is kind of more polished in a way, like kind of a striker that you feel has, gone through a lot of drills, and, like Obi-Martin seems a bit more instinct orientated, which can be absolutely brilliant as a striker because it causes absolute chaos for the opposition. And I think it's similar with himself and Garnacho. We also mentioned about Garnacho having more of an impact coming off the bench. When that game got really stretched, and especially when it went into extra time, it got extremely loose. and there's a lot of counterattacks going on both sides, and that's where he really came into his own. So, yeah, it would be interesting to see him from the start, to see how he actually deals with that when the game is a bit more tight, when his touch will be tested a bit more, when he does need to kind of link up and kind of hold the ball up, I suppose, and not kind of have his back to goal a lot more than maybe what he has, where he was chasing down Bassey and the likes. But yeah, definitely an exciting player, and does offer us something different. So probably one of the bright sparks we could take out of it. And I know he's very young, but he's extremely raw the way he plays at the moment.
But sometimes that's good, as you rightfully say, a player that's relying on instinct. And again, that is something that can really help a striker, especially, to read the play, to act on instinct, to get into the right place at the right time. That is a true fox in the box mentality. And you're right. Will he start against Arsenal? Let's bring it down to earth here. He probably won't start against Arsenal. He probably won't. But there has to be a feeling here that there needs to be consequences if you're not in form. And we're starting to see a little bit of Ten Hag favouritism come in for Højlund. And I love Højlund. I want him to do well. I think underneath him is a good player.
Or do you think he just doesn't have any options, and now he's kind of said... Because Obi-Martin's only came out in the last couple of weeks. Before that, he was rotating every week between Xerxes and Højlund. And it was kind of like, 1 week you do well, the next we'll start the other, and it was just kind of chopping and changing.
But then, for Amorim to sub him on in his first ever Premier League appearance with 2 minutes to go when we're trying to chase a game is,
I know the Spurs game, yeah.
Yeah, that was criminal to me.
Yeah.
If you're going to throw the dice, throw them earlier. And from that, he's had 20 minutes in the Premier League since then. He's had, 50 minutes in the FA Cup. And I think he's done enough. And this is the state of play right now, but he's done enough to challenge Højlund for that spot. I would love to see him take the start. I really would. It's just a case of, is it the right game to do so? I think Højlund will start, but I can see Obi-Martin coming on at half time. I really can. And give him 45 minutes and say to him, look, this is your chance. We need a goal. Make it 4-1. No, I'm kidding. Get a goal for us. But he needs that faith in him. And Amorim's got to start laying down the law with Højlund and saying, look, you've had these chances. You've started most of these games. And yes, it's because of injuries. And yes, we don't have many strikers. But now there's someone coming through the youth who is putting you under pressure. And you need to do better. And this is exactly what Højlund needs. He needs a reminder that his place in the team isn't guaranteed just because he's the only striker there.
Yeah, and it's a sad state of affairs that he's competing with our starting striker, and he's just ran around for half an hour and gone in and smashed people and had a few opportunities. But normally you'd be you're thinking of maybe Villa, like John Duran Watkins. John Duran's scoring every game. Watkins, you'd want to pull out the finger, and then he ends up scoring every game and then kind of earns his place back in a way, or earns was kind of beyond doubt. But it's where we're at, and it's a good debate about who do we start, but also about what is the right environment to bring a young player in. Is it when the team is settled and you have loads of really good professionals around and they're there to guide him, and he kind of comes in and he's maybe the third, fourth striker, or when it's absolute chaos and nothing's going right and you need some sort of a bright spark and you're like, look, I know you're young, but we need something, and this could be the one. I'm actually more inclined to put him in when things aren't going well. So I would be happy for him to play, because it sends a bit of a shockwave, like you said, around the squad, going, look lads, yes, there's injuries, but also I'm going to play him because he's actually putting his leg in and he's actually creating chances out of nothing as well. And yes, it is a different ball game when you're starting rather than coming on, but if you bring that work rate in, then it's going to give a bit of a boost and a bit of a lift to the whole team. And
you say as well, because that sort of conversation came up yesterday, when do you bring the youth in? Is it when you're already on top or whether you're struggling? But United have no choice. We've got to start playing youth players. And like you said about a month ago or 2 months ago when you tweeted out, just sack off the season, play the kids. Well, this is it now. We have to start playing the youth. We have to. We've got no choice. We are short in most areas. We've brought in Aiden Heaven as well to be that backup. I thought he was, look, as a centre-back in that game, he wasn't ever going to be covered in glory, but he did enough to keep us in that game. Yeah, so I think he was okay. Does he get a start? I don't think so. I think the back three seem pretty locked in. Amorim's happy with that sort of back three. He would have been playing Martinez, but I think De Ligt, Maguire, Yoro seems to be that go-to back three, at least for the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. But I think it's, when it comes to the midfield, you've got Toby Collier, who is he's already made some appearance this season. Does he come on against Arsenal? He's a really good midfielder, box to box, win the ball back. But we've yet to see what he can do going forward. Is he rather a sort of Agate who is your destroyer, who wins the ball back and just plays a simple pass to the facilitator? Or can he be one that carries the ball forward in a Mainu to drag us forward? I mean, we'll see. But we've got to start giving the youth a chance. We've got a youth academy, and it's been proven, time and time again that it's one of the best out there. So why aren't we using it? Let's bring some youngsters in, give them a chance. We never know what could happen. We could save ourselves £100 million in the pound of the market. I'm sure Sir Jim Ratcliffe will be delighted with the cost-saving cuts we'll be making by investing in the youth academy. I'm sure he'll be delighted when eventually PSR comes knocking on the door. He says, "Oh, that's an easy £30-40 million pure profit." Yeah. It all makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, and all for a few ham sandwiches as well. So throw them in. So, God. Look, we had a Wildcard Wednesday episode a few weeks ago. Going through those 7 or 8 players that were on the bench against Spurs.
Really didn't agree with you with Harry Emas though. I remember that.
Oh yeah. We got a bit of a kickback there. To be honest,
all opinions are fine.
Yeah. Just keep commenting. I actually invited him on the podcast, but I didn't get a reply.
That's a shame.
I'm quite disappointed about that because I was looking forward to that debate. But yeah, I'm standing by my Harry Amas one. Big fan. Actually, he almost rattled me. I went back and watched a couple of the preseason games, and I was like, "No, Niall, yeah, you're dead right, yeah." So,
but he did get in your head slightly. He was up there rent free.
Oh yeah, I mean, considering we were getting comments for the first time, I was like, "Oh, now
we're in the big leagues now."
Yeah. I was like, "This is what it feels like." Okay. Just surprised that's the one that someone picked up on. We've had a few howlers, none of them have been picked up.
But anyone who's listening have stuck by our side, so.
Absolutely.
We're doing okay.
Oh yeah, you had your Anthony one. Actually, people didn't like that when you said he scored a hat-trick against Arsenal.
No, I was in make-believe land, I think, but
it was actually less harsh. It was, you said he got a brace and he only scored 1 goal, and everyone was like, "Did you even watch the game?"
No, I'm a fake fan. You see,
a year ago. Yeah, exactly. We all are, of course. But yeah, I think, look, you mentioned it about giving the young players a shout, especially when you have these amount of injuries and when the team is performing so badly. It's probably the perfect opportunity to give them a go. We went through a lot of them. They're basically play all around the park as well. You have Kone in midfield. They probably could get a run out at some stage, considering the lack of legs we have at the moment and also injuries. You have Harry Amas, obviously. But then, Obi-Martin. Look, it's very difficult to know how good he'll be, but in the current state, let's just give him a go.
We've got no choice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyway, Kieran, thank you for joining me. It's always rough every week,
You're telling me.
But it has to be done. We're getting the episodes out, and people are tuning in to the Tactics Tuesday. So, we'll have a Wildcard Wednesday. We don't have any crossover with Real Sociedad this week, unfortunately, but we should be able to get one for Arsenal coming up. But yeah, we haven't branched out into La Liga yet, but it's coming. It's coming. But yeah, Kieran, thanks for joining me as always, and I'll see you in the next one.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.